Hi. The January 1968 was a very interesting month in my career. For one thing, I had not disclosed to any of my friends about my selection for appointment as lecturer in geology. Secondly, the director of geology had issued an order to appoint Radhakrishnan Nair as assistant geologist in the Calicut Kozhikode office of the Directorate of Geology. Then, director himself, on the basis of a request from the Director of Agriculture, Government of Kerala, to depute two assistant geologists to work in the newly created groundwater cell of the Directorate of Agriculture. Interestingly, Sri Paulo Sir, the Director of Geology, had recommended my name and recently promoted Radhakrishnan Nair's name to the Director of Agriculture for considering a deputation. Well, this was not told to me directly by the Director of Geology. Instead, Mr. Ayappan Nair, who was the geologist in charge of the Thrivikramji office, he just had given a hint to me that I might go to Directorate of Agriculture in the newly formed groundwater cell. Interesting thing about the Directorate of the cell in the groundwater department, groundwater in the Directorate of Agriculture is that today's state groundwater department was actually that creation that happened in 1968. Well, of course, 68 January was the appointment of the personnel to that cell. And the so-called red tape, etc., etc. In spite of that, Radhakrishnan went, did some field work, and the directorate, whenever he came down to Trivandrum, to expedite the matter. Well, that was interesting. And Radhakrishnan earned an appointment order somewhere along, February 68. Naturally, I too got a letter. Then I went over to director's office, saw the director, and told him that I had an appointment order from the university, which I received in the past week. So I think somewhere along the middle of February, as a lecturer in geology, based on my application, which director himself had forwarded. Then director just nodded, smiled at me for the first time probably, as a subordinate of his, and then said, okay, it is fine. So I came out, and the office was curious, because the office wanted to know what was the outcome of the reaction of the director. I said his response was very pleasant, unusually pleasant. Probably I did not say that he liked my getting out of the Directorate of Geology. Probably, I don't know. But anyway, by that time, Mr. P.K. Thambi, who was acting or professionally working as a instructor, also resigned from his job in the month of February. So what is it? Thambi goes out to the Department of Geology. Radhakrishnan is shifting over to the groundwater cell. And I am filing a request to the director for a for releasing me to take up the new job. But in fact, I had gone with Radhakrishnan to see the, setup, official office setup in the agricultural college campus. A lot for the newly created groundwater cell. It's an interesting place those days. It is nowhere near the agricultural college physical plant or the physical facility. Instead, somewhere along very close to the Vellani Kayal shore, there is a warehouse, and with a very tall ceiling, which reminded of the Valayadi estate in Kozhikode, our residence when we were in Kozhikode. And there, of course, in the corner, there is a office setup. One typist as it is called, typist clerk, and then two chairs, two desks for officials. So one was meant for Radhakrishnan and the other was meant for me, but of course I did not take it up. Then what else happened? By about, I was just trying to ask Ayyappan Nair about what time or how soon I will get released. Ayyappan Nair just said, Vikraman, I don't know, because the director has to do it. So, well, I did not go and meet again because I thought he may get annoyed, trying to ask him to expedite this matter. But anyway, I sat quiet. I think then Professor Menon had published a paper on the framboidal pyrite in Nature, like something like the origin of diagenetic pyrite in the Koilun limestone, age Bardigalian, India. And of course, it appeared in print somewhere in the early part of January, I think, or maybe by December toward the last quarter of 1967. So the university had also advertised a post of professor of geology because Menon sir was acting as a reader in geology. Well, of course, I noticed the advertisement, university looking for a professor's post. So then what happened was, by the month of March, by the middle of March, I would say that it was on the 16th of March, in the afternoon, I was released from the Directorate of Geology to take up the new job. So the next day, the 17th was a Sunday, and the director was very careful that I do not go and join on the same day of release. So that is the reason probably he said he ordered the release from the afternoon. And not only that, along with a letter I got, a memo I got signed by director, it said I will not have any claims in future in the Department of Geology under the government of Kerala. Well, of course, I cared less because, it did not matter to me at all because, I'm going for a regular job in the university. So then what happened was, the next day morning, I took my bicycle and then bicycled over to the university Senate House campus. And the geology department those days used to function in a brand new building overlooking the tennis stadium. And now, if I wanted to locate it further, it is behind the AKG center, as well as there is a building, red tiled building in that AKG center side, which is called Applied Chemistry. This 2.5-story building, because there is a cellar for the in the building. It is not a 3-story because the cellar did not cover the entire plinth of the 3-story building. So on that building, and that's where I went to school. Went to do my MSc. And then I walked in. I said hello to the office personnel. One Ramachandran Nair, and Seetham is a clerk, and Seetham is a typist, and Mr. Joseph was our peon. Well, of course, the rest of the group, Padmanabha Pillai, and in between, R. Gopi also joined as a technical assistant in the department. Okay. So then I went straight to Professor Menon's office. And I said, sir, good morning. And then he asked me to sit down. And then he said, you write a letter to the HOD stating that you are joining for duty from the forenoon of 18/3/1968. 18/3/1968. Well, then, he initialed on the margin and wanted me to give it over to the office. Well, then the procedure is, something like this. The office will write a letter to the registrar of the university reporting that so-and-so has joined on such and such a time. Then what the university does is, university will issue a long letter giving the story of how the post came into being, when was the interview conducted, and who were ranked, and on that basis, so-and-so was admitted. Then they will say the appointment is governed by the University Act of 1957, so on and so forth, and I will be on probation for 1 year, etc., etc. And my salary will be drawn from such and such an account. Such a very detailed story about how it all began until I took over. So that comes only after a month or so, and with that only you will be in a position to draw your salary. Fine. Then once I joined, well, we had a batch of 5 students only. And the names I remember are V. Narayanan Nair, who happened to be later on a junior colleague to me, and one A.M. Nair. Of course, he died in America after retirement, and the rest, of course, it is very difficult to remember, but I have a group photo. So it was March. By April, all the exams were over. However, the story is that Mr. Krishnanath did not join immediately. Krishnanath waited until July or June to join the department for some reason, for administrative reasons. That's all I know about. But of course, Krishnanath used to drop in once a while, a week, and just say hello to Professor Menon and then to Krishnan Nair sir. And in the meantime, Thambi also had quit as soon as, by the first week of first week of February or so, when he came to understand that he was not in the select list. Then the university exams were over, written by April, and in month of May, there was the laboratory practical exams. And I was the skilled assistant in the practical exam. My job is to arrange for, the different items for the examination under instruction from the visiting examiners. And when it came to optical laboratory or optics, which is, like I said, is a very important part of any geological study. The examiner, I think it was Sadashivaya, Karnataka University, Dharwad. he told me, hey Vikramji, what you do is you put one university stage and then a exam for a test for 2V. Well, 2V is something very important as far as identification of anisotropic and biaxial minerals are concerned. Well, then I asked Krishnan Nair sir, how do I do it? Do we give the standard thin section supplied by the universal stage supplier? And I wanted Krishnan Nair sir to sound whether we can give that section. Then the examiners, Sadashiva sir said that, no, you have to give another thin section, give a pyroxene. Well, I sat down with the pyroxene thin section, several of them, because that's very common in the Charnakai rod. And finally, I was not in a position to get an appropriate section which will be useful for identification of 2V. So finally, I went and told sir, it is very difficult to get a good section appropriate for this exam, this test. Then he looked at me and said, hey, what are you talking about? Just take a piece of mica and mount it. That will be, the two, because the mica has the excellent basal cleavage and the two optic axes will be emerging vertically. Not vertically, they will be up, pointing toward the ocular. Only thing is, you will have to manipulate the different axes of the stage and get the two readings. I said, wow, that is a very interesting and easy job. Then I went quickly out, went to the museum, took a piece of Muscovite mica, mounted by Padmanabha Pillai, not one, two or three. Then I selected and I one with the appropriate thickness, and that's it. It's because identification of Muscovite, the 2V of Muscovite, the optic axis of Muscovite is such an easy task. So that was the end of the exam, and then I felt very good. And of course, I think Narayana Nair was awarded the first rank. I think. By that time, Krishnanath also joined. Krishnanath was there. And I don't know, somehow there is a claim made by Mr. Late Krishnanath that he was instrumental in helping Narayana Nair in whatever part of the exam he was involved with. Anyway, because as a young lecturers or new lecturers, our job is also to assist the examiners in evaluation of the answer scripts. Well, then what happened was, Sadashiva sir said that, hey Vikramji, I am coming back again in another month. And then of course, he left. We also were very happy. The students were very happy.